My name is Kennedy Edwards. I'm 34 years old, and this all happened so recently that sometimes I still pause in the middle of my day and think, did that really happen? Not in a heartbroken way, more like disbelief. The kind that makes you replay moments you brushed off, moments that quietly warned you long before everything fell apart. I was with Adrian Miller for 2 years, was being the important word now. We met through mutual friends at a birthday dinner. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic. He was charming in a low-key way, funny without trying, soft-spoken, the kind of man who made you feel safe sitting next to him in a crowded room. He worked as a dental hygienist, had his own apartment, paid his bills on time. On paper, he was stable. And at 34, stability mattered to me. The first 6 months were easy, comfortable. We cooked together, watched bad documentaries, talked about travel we might never take. I thought I'd finally grown into a relationship that didn't feel like emotional whiplash. Then I started noticing things. Adrian had a fascination with women who were the complete opposite of me. Not a passing comment, not a harmless preference, an obsession. Women with motorcycles, tattoos, leather jackets, that reckless, dangerous energy. The kind of chaos that looks exciting from a distance but burns everything it touches. The first time it happened, we were at a bar with friends. A woman walked past us wearing ripped jeans, heavy boots, a leather vest. Adrian's eyes followed her, openly, lingering. Then he laughed and said, "Damn, that's hot." Right in front of me. I remember blinking, waiting for him to realize what he'd just done. He didn't. Instead, he nudged my arm and joked that I'd look great on the back of a bike if I ever wanted to live a little. I told him I had zero interest in becoming someone else's midlife crisis. He laughed, but I didn't miss the disappointment in his eyes. I wasn't that woman. I worked in supply chain management. I drove a sensible sedan. I liked routine. I liked peace. I believed excitement didn't need to feel unsafe to be real. Apparently, that made me boring. I should have ended it then. That was the first red flag. Instead, I told myself what so many women tell themselves: everyone has types. It doesn't mean anything. I confronted him after that night, calmly, clearly. I told him if he wanted someone else, he was free to go find her. I wouldn't compete with a fantasy. He promised it meant nothing. Said he loved what we had. Said I was reading too much into casual comments. I stayed. Around the 1 year mark, things shifted. Adrian became protective of his phone, tilting the screen away, taking calls in the other room, smiling at texts he wouldn't explain. He said he'd joined a weekend cycling group. Bicycles, he said. I wanted to believe him. I'm not controlling. I never wanted to be the woman who interrogates her partner just to feel secure, but my intuition kept tapping me on the shoulder, quietly whispering that something wasn't right. I ignored it, and that decision cost me more than I realized. If Adrian had just admitted it, maybe it would have hurt in a clean way. But no, the truth came through someone else's mouth, casually, accidentally, like the universe couldn't wait any longer for me to stop being naive. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because my day had been painfully normal. Emails, deadlines, coffee gone cold on my desk. I was in that half-focused state where your brain is working but your heart is quiet. Then my phone rang. Adrian's mom, Patricia Miller. She was the kind of woman who always sounded like she was smiling. Even when she was disappointed, her tone stayed polite, warm, almost gentle. We weren't close, but we'd had dinners together, exchanged holiday texts. I'd even helped her pick out a gift for Adrian once. So when I saw her name on my screen, I answered without thinking twice. "Hi, Patricia, everything okay?" "Oh, yes, sweetheart. I just wanted to see if you and Adrian wanted to come over for dinner this weekend." I smiled automatically. "That sounds nice. What day were you thinking?" There was a small pause, so small I might have missed it if I wasn't paying attention. Then she said, in the same cheerful tone like it was just a normal update, "Well, I know Adrian's been busy lately, always out with his new girlfriend, but maybe you both can make time." My stomach dropped so fast it felt like my body forgot how to breathe. I blinked. My mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. My brain was scrambling, flipping through possibilities like a frantic deck of cards. New girlfriend? What does she mean, new girlfriend? Finally, I managed very softly. "Excuse me, what?" Silence. Then the warmth in her voice vanished like someone shut off a lamp. Oh no." Her words came slower now, heavier. I thought you two had broken up." My hands went cold. I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles hurt. "No," I said, forcing the word out like it weighed 100 pounds. "We definitely have not broken up. There was another pause, longer this time. Patricia exhaled, and in that breath, I could hear shame, confusion, and the realization that she'd just stepped on a landmine she didn't know existed. "Oh, Kennedy," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I must have misunderstood something Adrian said." I waited for her to explain. She didn't. Instead, she rushed out an apology, said she'd call me later, and hung up quickly, like the call itself had burned her. And just like that, I was sitting alone, staring at my phone. The room was quiet, but inside me, everything was screaming. His own mother thought we'd broken up. That meant Adrian had been living a double life, so casually, he was comfortable rewriting our relationship status to his family. Not to strangers, not to coworkers, to his mother. And the worst part was how instantly my mind tried to protect him anyway. Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe he said something weird. Maybe it's not what I think. But my gut didn't feel uncertain. It felt confirmed. I didn't call him right away. I don't even know why. Maybe because if I called and he lied, I would have lost my temper, or worse, believed him again. Maybe I needed proof so solid I couldn't twist myself into forgiving it. So I did something I should have done weeks earlier. We had combined our phone plans a few months back to save money. One of those little adult decisions that felt like teamwork at the time. It meant I could access the call and text logs. I opened our carrier's website, logged in, clicked his line, and there it was. A number, over and over. Late nights, early mornings, during his work hours, on weekends, sometimes multiple times in a single hour. My throat tightened. I copied the number into a reverse lookup. The name that popped up made my stomach roll. Zara Cole. I didn't know her, but I didn't need to. Because when I searched her on social media, my screen filled with leather and chrome. Zara wasn't subtle. Her page was public, like she wanted the world to watch her life. Tattoos down her arms, dark eyeliner, a motorcycle that looked like it could swallow the road whole. Photos at biker rallies, bars, smoke curling around neon signs. And then I saw it. A picture posted 2 weeks ago. Zara standing next to a Harley, smiling like she had teeth sharp enough to bite through steel, and wrapped around her waist, Adrian's arms. He was behind her, chin near her shoulder, grinning like he'd finally stepped into the version of himself he'd been hiding. The caption read, "My girl knows how to hold on tight." I swear, for a second, I couldn't hear anything. Not the AC, not the faint noise from the street, not even my own breathing, because my body understood it before my mind could soften it. He wasn't cycling. He wasn't busy. He wasn't going through something. He was cheating. And he wasn't even ashamed enough to hide it properly. I screenshotted everything, sent it to myself, saved it in multiple places like I was preparing for war. Then I closed my laptop and sat there waiting for the part of me that loved him to beg for mercy. It didn't. It just went quiet. That evening, Adrian came over like nothing had happened. He kissed my cheek the way he always did, like my face belonged to him, like he wasn't carrying another woman's hands in his memory. "How was your day?" he asked, tossing his keys onto the counter. I looked at him for a long moment. "Interesting," I said. He chuckled, completely unaware he'd already stepped off the edge. "Mine was boring, just work stuff." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshot, and held it out to him like a mirror. "Who is Zara?" I asked. His face changed instantly. The color drained out of him so fast it was almost frightening. His eyes flickered, his lips parted like he was searching for air. For a split second, he looked like a trapped animal. Then he tried to smile. "Kennedy, what is that?" "A question," I said. "Calm. Dead calm. Answer it." He swallowed. She's just someone from..." "From what?" I watched his brain scramble, trying to pick a lie that sounded believable. He finally landed on something pathetic. "She's from a writing group." I almost laughed. "A writing group," I repeated. He nodded too quickly. "Yeah, we meet up sometimes. It's just..." I lifted my laptop from the table and opened the call logs I already had waiting. I turned it toward him. 2 months of constant calls and texts. His eyes widened like I'd slapped him. I leaned forward slightly, voice still quiet. "So your writing group meets at 1 a.m. on my show?" He stared at the screen, jaw clenched, shoulders stiff. Then, like a switch flipped, his face crumpled. He started crying. Not the dignified kind. Not the kind that comes with accountability. The messy kind people use when they're caught. "Kennedy, I didn't mean..." He choked out. "It wasn't serious." My stomach twisted. "It wasn't serious," I echoed, tasting how cheap those words were. He shook his head rapidly, wiping his face with his hand like that could erase what he'd done. "It was just fun. I don't know. It was exciting. I held up my hand. How long? I asked. He hesitated. Then, small, 2 months. 2 months, while he kissed me, while he ate at my table, while he told me he loved me. I felt something in me harden, not into hatred, into clarity. I nodded slowly, like I was filing the information away. Then I asked the question that mattered. So, are we done? Adrian blinked, confused. What? I stared at him. You've been with her for 2 months, I said evenly. So I'm asking, are we done? He looked at me like I'd spoken another language. No, no, Kennedy. I don't want to be done. I want you. I felt my chest tighten, not from love, from disgust. You wanted her to, I said softly, and you chose that. He reached for me, hands trembling. I made a mistake. I'll end it, I swear. Zara doesn't mean anything. There it was. The audacity. The way he tried to shove 2 months of betrayal into a box labeled mistake, like it was a wrong turn on the highway instead of a repeated decision. I stood up. My knees were steady, even if my heart wasn't. I pointed toward the door. Get out, I said. His face broke again. Kennedy, please. Out. He cried harder, like volume could change reality. I love you, he sobbed. I love you. I was stupid. It was just too late, I said, voice low and final. You already made your choice when you let her post you like you were proud. He froze at that, because that was the part he hadn't prepared for. Not the cheating, the fact that I'd seen the pride, the grin, the comfort of it. He stared at me like he was realizing, for the first time, that I wasn't going to rescue him from consequences. He grabbed his coat slowly, like his hands didn't belong to him anymore. At the door, he turned back with wet eyes. I didn't think you'd actually leave me, he whispered. I looked at him and felt something close to pity. Not for him. For the version of me that ever thought love meant tolerating betrayal. I didn't think you'd actually do this, I replied. Then he walked out, and I stood there in the silence, staring at the door like it might open again and reveal this was all a misunderstanding. But it didn't, because some truths don't come with apologies that fix things. They come with a new emptiness you have to learn how to live inside. And I didn't know it yet, but that was only the beginning. For a moment after Adrian left, I stood completely still. No sobbing, no screaming, just silence pressing in from all sides, like my apartment had decided to hold its breath with me. I kept expecting something dramatic to happen inside me. Rage, heartbreak, the collapse everyone talks about when they find out they've been betrayed. Instead, I felt hollow, the kind of hollow that comes when your mind finally stops fighting the truth and accepts it. I locked the door, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall until the sky outside shifted from evening blue to full black. That should have been the end. A clean break, a lesson learned, a painful but survivable chapter. But Adrian had never been good at accepting endings. The next morning, my phone buzzed before I'd even finished my coffee. Adrian, I didn't sleep. I can't stop thinking about what I did. Please talk to me. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, another message. I ended things with Zara, I swear. Silence on my end. By lunchtime, the tone changed. You don't understand. I was confused. You know I've always struggled with excitement. That one made me laugh, once. A sharp, humorless sound. Struggled with excitement. As if cheating were a medical condition. I muted the conversation and went back to work, forcing myself to focus on spreadsheets instead of the man who had lived in my bed for 2 years and lied to my face. The following day, he showed up, unannounced. I saw his car from my window, parked too neatly, like he was trying to appear respectful. My chest tightened, not with longing, but irritation. I didn't open the door. He knocked anyway. Soft at first, then harder. Kennedy, he called through the door, voice cracked. Please, just let me explain. I leaned against the wall, eyes closed, and let the sound pass over me like bad weather. Eventually, he left. 2 days later, a letter arrived. An actual handwritten letter. 6 pages long. I didn't read it right away. I let it sit on my counter for hours, like a loaded weapon. When I finally did, it was exactly what you'd expect. Apologies that didn't apologize, explanations that shifted blame, declarations of love that arrived too late. He wrote about feeling lost, about craving intensity, about how he never meant to hurt me. Not once did he write, I betrayed you. I blocked him, everywhere. Phone, social media, email, and slowly life got quieter. 3 weeks passed. No messages, no knocks, no surprise letters. I started sleeping again. Started cooking for 1 instead of 2. Started feeling my body return to itself, like I'd been holding tension in my shoulders for months and only now realized it. I assumed Adrian had moved on, that he was still with Zara. Good for them, I thought bitterly, riding off into the sunset on a motorcycle built from bad decisions and worse judgment. I was wrong. It was a Saturday morning, just after 8. The kind of early that feels intrusive when you're not expecting anyone. My doorbell rang. I groaned, pulling the blanket over my head before common sense forced me out of bed. I shuffled to the door and glanced through the peephole. It was Adrian. He looked wrecked, hair unwashed, dark circles under his eyes. Wearing sweatpants and an old jacket I recognized, one I'd bought him 2 winters ago. For a second, my heart did that stupid thing where it tried to remember love instead of pain. Then my mind reminded it of Zara's smile. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. "What do you want?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just started crying. Not quietly, not politely. Full body sobbing like he'd been holding it in for days and couldn't anymore. "I messed up," he choked. "I messed everything up." I crossed my arms. "What does that have to do with me?" He looked up, eyes red and desperate. "I need to talk to someone who understands me." I tilted my head. "Then call a friend." "You're the only one who really knows me," he said quickly. Too quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. There it was. The manipulation, thinly disguised as vulnerability. But I was curious enough to let him talk. "What happened with Zara?" I asked. His face twisted. She's not who I thought she was." I almost laughed. Apparently, the bad boy image came with bad boy behavior. He told me everything in a rush, like if he slowed down, I might stop listening. How Zara was controlling. How she got angry when he didn't text back immediately. How she didn't like him talking to other women, including coworkers. How she criticized what he wore, who he saw, how he spent his time. She'd say it was because she cared, he said, voice shaking. But it felt like I was walking on glass. I watched him carefully. "And yet," I said, "you stayed." He nodded, ashamed. At first it felt intense, passionate. I thought that meant it was real. By the time I realized it was just toxic, I felt trapped. There it was. The confession wrapped in justification. I made sympathetic noises, nodded at the right moments, waited. Because I knew, this wasn't just a confession tour. This was a setup. He wiped his face and took a shaky breath. "I broke up with her 2 weeks ago," he said. I raised an eyebrow. And it was messy. She didn't take it well." He hesitated. "Kennedy, I'm not okay." I said nothing. "I've been having panic attacks, nightmares. I can't sleep." He swallowed hard. "I think I need therapy." Finally, the real reason he was here. "And?" I repeated. He looked at me like I should already understand. "My insurance barely covers anything. The co-pays are insane." He stepped closer, voice lowering. "I was hoping you might help me." I stared at him. Help him? This man cheated on me, lied to me, humiliated me, chose chaos over commitment. And now he wanted me to fund his recovery from the consequences of his own choices. "Are you serious?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Completely. I know it's a lot to ask, but you're the only stable, good person in my life. I need your help to heal from what Zara put me through." The audacity was almost impressive. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I smiled. "I'll help you," I said. His face lit up instantly, relief washing over him like I'd just saved him from drowning. "Thank you," he breathed. "I knew you'd understand." I held up a finger. "I know a great specialist," I added. He blinked. "You do?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Give me 10 minutes to get dressed." His eyes followed me as I stepped back inside. "Should I come in?" he asked. "No," I said without looking back. "Wait in your car." Something flickered across his face, hurt, maybe, but he nodded and left. I closed the door and went to my closet. Not for clothes. For the 2 large garbage bags tucked neatly in the corner. Because some therapy doesn't come in an office. And some lessons don't come gently. I didn't rush. That was the part that surprised me most. I moved slowly, deliberately, like every step was finally mine again. I pulled on jeans, a sweater, tied my hair back. The mirror reflected a woman who looked calm, too calm for what she was about to do. But calm didn't mean weak. It meant decided. I grabbed my keys. Then the garbage bags. They were heavier than they looked. 2 years of someone else's life condensed into plastic. Clothes he'd left behind, toiletries, books, random objects that had quietly migrated into my space while I wasn't paying attention. Proof of intimacy, proof of assumption, proof that he thought he belonged. I carried them out to my car and set them in the trunk. Adrian was waiting in his car, engine idling, watching me with that hopeful, fragile expression that used to undo me. He stepped out when he saw me, hands shoved into his pockets. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "just getting us there." He smiled, relieved, and got back into his car. I pulled out first. He followed. We drove for about 20 minutes, long enough for the silence to start feeling intentional, long enough for him to text me twice. "Where are we going? You okay?" I didn't respond. The road narrowed as we left the main streets. Familiar houses began to line the block, lawns trimmed just enough, cars parked at polite angles, a neighborhood that looked exactly like what it was. Safe, predictable, boring. I pulled over in front of a beige house with white shutters. Adrian's parents' house. I parked, turned off the engine, stepped out. He pulled up behind me, confusion written all over his face. He got out of his car, eyes darting between me and the house like his brain was lagging behind reality. "Kennedy?" he asked. "Why are we—" I didn't answer. I walked to my trunk and opened it. The sound of plastic rustling cut through the quiet street. I lifted the first bag, then the second, my arms straining just slightly under the weight. Adrian stared. "What are those?" he asked, his voice rising. I walked past him without a word and stepped onto his parents' lawn. Then I dropped the bags. They landed with a dull, final thud. Adrian rushed toward me, panic flaring. "What are you doing?" "Kennedy, stop. This isn't funny." "Relax," I said evenly. "I told you I knew a great specialist." The front door opened. His father stepped out, squinting in the sunlight, confusion etched into his face. A man who looked like he'd just been pulled out of a quiet morning routine and dropped into someone else's mess. He looked at me, then at Adrian, then at the bags on the lawn. I lifted a hand in a small wave. "Good morning," I said. He waved back automatically, unsure. Adrian was scrambling now, trying to pick up the bags, his voice sharp and embarrassed. "Kennedy, please, this is humiliating." I looked at him, really looked at him. "This is therapy," I said calmly. He froze. "Therapy is expensive," I continued, "but I know some specialists who treat patients for free." His father's brow furrowed. I met Adrian's eyes. "Your parents." For a second, nothing happened. Then understanding hit him like a physical blow. "No," he whispered. "You can't." "I can," I said, "and I am." His father took a step closer, concern turning into something heavier. "Adrian," he said slowly, "what's going on?" Adrian's mouth opened, closed. He looked at me, then back at his father, then down at the bags like they might explain it for him. I didn't wait. I turned, walked back to my car, and got in. As I pulled away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Adrian stood frozen on the lawn, mouth open, hands empty. His father had moved closer to him, saying something I couldn't hear. The bags sat between them like evidence. My phone started ringing before I reached the end of the block. I didn't answer. Voicemails followed. The first ones were angry, calling me cruel, immature, accusing me of humiliating him on purpose. Later ones shifted. The anger cracked into desperation, crying, begging, promises. I listened to none of them. That evening, his mother called. Her voice was quiet this time, tired. She apologized for him, for herself, for the situation. She said something that surprised me. "Adrian has always chased the wrong things," she admitted. "Excitement, validation, chaos, and we've cleaned up after him more times than I care to count." She paused. "What you did was harsh," she said honestly, "but maybe it was necessary." I thanked her, and when the call ended, I felt something settle inside me. Not guilt, relief, because for the first time I hadn't softened the consequences. I'd simply delivered them. I thought the lawn incident would be the end of it. Naively, I believed that public accountability, parental involvement, and a bruised ego would finally convince Adrian to let go. I underestimated how deeply some people cling to the idea that someone else is responsible for saving them. Monday came. I was at work, halfway through a meeting, when my phone started vibrating nonstop on the table. Not Adrian's name, a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it. Then another message. Then another. "By lunch, Curiosity 1. The first text read, "Stay away from my man." The second was less polite. By the third, the tone shifted into threats. It didn't take a detective to figure out who it was from. Zara. Apparently, Adrian had gone straight back to her after being dropped on his parents' lawn like a bag of unresolved issues. And instead of telling her the truth, he'd fed her a revised version, one where I was the villain. According to her messages, I was abusive, controlling, obsessed, harassing him. I took screenshots of everything. Didn't respond. Blocked the number. An hour later, my phone rang again. Different number. Same energy. This time it was Adrian. He left a voicemail so unhinged it almost didn't sound like him, accusing me of ruining his life, of turning his parents against him, of making Zara feel unsafe. Unsafe. I sat in my car in the parking lot, phone in my lap, and laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was surreal. By Wednesday, the messages came from burner numbers. By Thursday, mutual friends started calling. One of them, Emma, his best friend since college, actually had the nerve to tell me I was being cold. She's worried about him, Emma said. He's not doing well. I asked her one simple question. Are you paying for his therapy? Silence. That's what I thought, I replied, and hung up. By Friday, I'd blocked 7 numbers. 7. Each message followed the same script. He was sorry. He needed help. I was the only one who could help him. Not once did he say, I hurt you. Saturday morning, a letter arrived. 6 pages, handwritten. I skimmed it. Apologies that felt borrowed. Explanations recycled from every bad decision he'd ever made. And then, inevitably, the money. He said the therapy program would cost about $200. That number told me everything. This wasn't about healing. It was about outsourcing responsibility. I didn't respond. Instead, I posted one vague status online. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, then tries to crawl back for pickup. Petty? Absolutely. Satisfying? Undeniably. Within hours, messages poured in. I kept my responses simple. Adrian and I broke up. I'd rather not discuss it. The people who mattered already knew the truth, and they were appalled. For the first time in weeks, Sunday morning was quiet. Coffee, sunlight, no chaos. Then the doorbell rang. I froze. If it was Adrian, I was calling the police. I checked the peephole. It wasn't Adrian. It was Zara. Leather vest, arms crossed, chin lifted like she wanted a confrontation. I didn't open the door. She knocked harder. Kennedy, she called. We need to talk. I pulled out my phone and started recording before answering through the door. There's nothing to talk about, I said. She accused me of harassment. I laughed. I've been ignoring you, I said. That's the opposite of harassment. She refused to leave. So I told her she was trespassing and I was calling the police. The word police worked wonders. She backed off, muttered threats, and stormed away. I filed a report that night, just in case. Because peace isn't passive, it's protected. 2 days later, Adrian called from yet another number. I answered, not because I owed him anything, because I wanted to end it cleanly. He was crying, again. Zara had been arrested for violating a restraining order someone else had against her. Apparently, this wasn't her first pattern. He said he bailed her out, then said she blamed him, then said he was finally done with her. For real this time. He asked if we could meet for coffee. I said no. He asked if we could be friends. I said no. He asked why I was holding a grudge. That's when I finally snapped, not loudly, but completely. I reminded him he cheated, that he expected me to fund his recovery, that he sent chaos to my doorstep, that he spent weeks harassing me through friends and fake numbers. There is no universe, I told him, where we are friends. He said I'd changed. I told him I hadn't. I'd just stopped giving kindness to people who treated me like garbage. Then I blocked the number. For good. The next day, an email arrived. Short. He said he understood now. Said he wouldn't contact me again. Said his parents were helping him pay for therapy. That was 4 days ago. His mother called yesterday. She said he was finally taking responsibility. That therapy was helping. That he admitted he'd confused drama for passion and stability for boredom. I thanked her. And I meant it. Because healing doesn't require reunion. It requires distance. So here I am now, single, peaceful, and far less tolerant of nonsense than I was a month ago. I've gone on a few dates. Nothing serious, no rush. I'm learning what it feels like to exist without someone else's chaos bleeding into my life. And if I ever hear a man talk about how boring stability is, I won't argue. I'll walk away.